All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. My name is Olivia Camilto. I'm the Executive Director for IREM Orange County. We have some great presenters today. We have Christine Roy on the call as well. She is our Vice President of Programs for IREM Orange County. She was going to be the one to welcome everyone and introduce our sponsors. However, the tree trimmers showed up right before we were starting. So if that's not what you get for working from home, then I don't know what is. So it was very loud in her background. So I am stepping in on her behalf, but she'll probably chime in towards the end during our Q&A session. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We'll get started. So we're glad that you are here. We do have a few sponsors for this event. We have GuardTop, Access Exterminators, and Servitech. So I'd like to give just a few moments here. Let's see. For Jeff Lazar, if you are on the call from GuardTop, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say a few words. Jeff, are you on here? Jeff Lazar with GuardTop. He may not have been able to hop on this morning. Feel free to chime in, Jeff, if you are. Jeff's contact information is right here on the screen if you would like to take a screenshot, and then we'll be sending out the slides afterwards as well. GuardTop is the gold standard in asphalt protection. So thank you, Jeff and GuardTop, for sponsoring. We also have Bill McConaughey with Access Exterminator Service. Bill, were you able to hop on the call today?
Hi, good. Can I get a chicken, grilled chicken?
Oh my.
Breaded chicken breast sandwich?
Let's see if I can.
And
some food here.
We want some.
the jasmine
Yeah, order all.
Oh
Make that 2 jasmine iced tea.
Chicken and iced tea. That sounds delicious. All right, Bill McConaughey, are you on the call? Not sure he's on either. He's with Access Exterminators. So again, thank you to Bill. Contact information is here. And then I will move on here to introduce our presenters. So we have Eric Frizz. He is a partner with Servitech Facility Solutions. He will be helping facilitate our conversation today. Just helping us to learn what his company is doing to help facilitate cleanliness and returning back to the office during these odd times. And then we also have Kelly Tang. He's with IAC Property Services. He is the president over there. He's also the vice president of education for IREM Orange County and one of the IREM approved facilitators for the education courses that IREM offers. So Kelly really knows his stuff. He enjoys education, and we're lucky to have both of these gentlemen here today to help lead our conversation and facilitate just kind of some collaboration today as it pertains to the topic. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to Kelly, and just some quick housekeeping notes. Again, you're welcome to share your camera. We will be opening it up for some conversation towards the end. If you wouldn't mind just muting yourself for now, then you can take yourself off mute later. We will be taking questions in the chat box. So anything that Kelly or Eric bring up, you're welcome to jot down in the chat box, and we will have some time towards the end for Q&A, as well as time for you all to chime in on what your properties or your companies are doing to help return back to work as well. So I am going to turn it over now to Kelly. He'll be sharing his screen, and then Kelly, actually, as people are trying to come in, it actually does pop up a little, option for you to admit them. So sure. Feel free if you're the multitasking type. All right, let's see here. All right, take it away, Kelly.
Great, thank you. So I think it's too late for me to hit leave now, right? What's gonna happen?
You're stuck.
I'm stuck. Let me pull pull this up, make sure I have everyone. Well, good morning. First and foremost, I want to thank our sponsors for their continued support. I see a lot of familiar names and faces here, and while IREM was built on the foundation of ethics, IREM remains pivotal in the continued development of our industry professionals through its education and network of professionals. Even in developing the strategy for my current organization, I reached out to several IREM peers for feedback, in addition to referencing the IREM Pandemic Reopening Guide. Reality is none of this is rocket science, and there is a ton of information out there. My hope is that what this does is it provides you all with a real perspective on what the next steps look like, so you can begin formulating your plans for your respective organizations. I think it's easy to say that right now it's time to level set. I know there's a varied audience here of owners, managers, and vendors, but for those of you that are somehow unaware, property management is busier than ever. This has been one of the most challenging things to move through as the entire industry learns, develops, and rolls out what it can to really calm the waters. It's hard to think about what to do moving forward if we don't reflect on what has already occurred. For a lot of us, the days have only gotten longer. If you think about the time focus in each of these critical tasks since pre-COVID to now, there are more priorities than hours in a workday. While there was a shift in priorities from February to March, it was still within reason. Same story from March to April. We were to some degree blessed by the slower leasing season in multifamily. May, for all of you that are very aware of, has been anything but slow. Leasing has picked up tremendously. We're on track right now as an organization to outpace leasing last year by 15%. Early on, we're on track to outpace leasing by 25%. I'm assuming most of you are feeling that same pressure as well. And oh, by the way, we need to remain laser focused on delinquency, and our residents are all home, which creates another set of challenges as well. What it comes down to it is, property management can't continue to focus on more items than the day allows. Something's got to give. As markets begin to open back up to whatever our new normal is, there's going to be a huge sigh of relief, and then the reality is going to set in. How do we reopen our leasing offices, amenities, and get caught up on work orders? How do we balance our residents' expectations and the guidance provided by our local jurisdictions and the Orange County Health Department? The answer isn't simple, but it's easier to understand if you can break it down. When I think about reopening, I think about a couple of key items. First and foremost, what are the expectations of your residents and your associates? How do we maintain the balance of our teams feeling safe while meeting the residents' needs and expectations? Second, what does the service request backlog look like? How do we tackle them? And third, how do we reopen our amenities, and what about this leasing office? What happens to the leasing office? At each organization, decisions need to be made. Should masks be required? Will we perform temperature health checks with residents, prospects, guests, and employees? Will we allow gatherings in the common areas? How will we handle packages moving forward? Do we ever perform a normal leasing tour ever again? And most importantly, if there's a resurgence in the pandemic, what are the signals and triggers to know to take a step back? I'll tackle the first thing first with regards to masks. I don't believe there's any question or debate on the effectiveness of PPE. Will it be required for team members but recommended for others? Probably. If this was the city of Los Angeles, or if you happen to have properties in Los Angeles County, you're well aware that masks are required for all essential personnel, which includes all of property management, office, and maintenance. Not only are they requiring that piece of it, they're also requiring that you offer it to residents, guests, and vendors as well. So if you're ever out of masks, feel free to go tour a bunch of properties in LA, and you can grab a bunch of them for free. Temperature health checks. Large national gym providers are currently planning on utilizing them once they're allowed to reopen. The question is, should we in multifamily do the same thing? And most importantly, is it feasible for non-high-rise properties, such as garden-style properties, to really try to do a temperature health check before a resident uses the gym? I don't think this is feasible in most circumstances unless you've got the gym in close proximity to the leasing office. But the question, I think, really becomes, should it be required in the leasing office? Should you require a health survey for prospects before they tour? I think the answer is yes, and we're probably going to do it. I think right now the challenge is really trying to figure out the logistics of how this is actually going to happen. With regards to common areas, I think common areas are going to open up again. I don't think that we are in perma closure there, but I think what it's going to look like after we reopen is going to be really different to what we've seen in the past. And you start to think about, how do we maintain or restrict gatherings of under 10 people and still somehow maintain social distancing? And so I think there's going to be a lot of need to get creative with how furniture is laid out, as well as, how many barbecue grills do you have open next to one another. With regards to packages, if you have a large enough team, you can dedicate a designated PPE station to go ahead and check in and check out packages. But if you don't have a large enough team, I think you need to find alternate solutions. And in some of our properties where we've got a single person team, we're really looking at opportunities to use vacant storage as well as vacant units to check in and out packages, so that we're really reducing the number of residents going into the office. With regards to normal leasing tours, I think for the most part, the industry is going to continue performing these social distancing tours for quite some time. Virtual tours, FaceTime, Zoom, interactive tours are here to stay. So if your organization or your property doesn't have a plan now for those, I would continue to forge down that path. And lastly, this concept of resurgence. Right now, Orange County is in stage 2 as defined by Governor Newsom, and we're on the cusp of stage 3. If we enter stage 3 and go back to stage 2, I don't see how we avoid backing down on some of these operating procedures as well. So as things open up, and if there's a resurgence, you close them back down and you wait for the go signal moving forward. If you don't have a service request backlog, great. You've somehow managed to address all your service requests while social distancing. If you're like most companies and followed CAA and NMHC guidance, you've really only been turning units and addressing life safety and habitability concerns. So what about this backlog? How do you handle this queue of service requests that are outstanding? Ideally, the teams have been tracking open service requests separately. If not, I recommend you reach out to all of your residents by sending out a work order letter and really try to understand what is out there so that you can better plan and organize what that work looks like. Once you have an idea of the total of work orders that are pending and outstanding, it's really going to come down to specialization and organization. Residents, for the most part, don't want 3 different vendors or people entering their units at 3 different times. And so my strategy for my organization, my recommendation to all of you, is to really divide the work based on, first and foremost, when was the work order received, so you're handling in the priority that you should. And then how can we take care of all the potential service requests within this unit in one shot? And so at this point, we're leveraging heavily with our vendor relationships to better understand, how do we bulk purchase these items that, we might have changed 1 or 2 light bulbs last week, but now we've got to change 400 light bulbs. And what does that look like? And logistically, how do we store 400 light bulbs before we change the 400 light bulbs? And so really working through the logics of that piece of it, so that when we go to unit 100, we can go in there, address everything, and then move on. Another idea that we've tossed around as well is really creating sort of like this SWAT team of maintenance team members, where they just go property by property and just crank out all the work orders. And I think the last thing that's the most important with regards to service requests is really just communicating. It's communicating with your residents on the expectations. Here's what it looks like at this property. We've got 450 service requests. You're number 7. And here's when we think we're going to go ahead and address that. And lastly, with regards to amenities, I think every property has its own sets of challenges when it comes to amenities. When I think about the amenities, I categorize it really into 3 results. They're either open, closed, or restricted. Open and closed are pretty self-explanatory, so I want to talk a little bit about how I view this restricted status. Laundry facilities. Most PMCs left them open and increased cleaning. I don't think anything changes with the laundry rooms. If you don't have machines that text residents when their items are done, I think it's time to consider upgrading your equipment. The goal is to not have residents hanging out longer than they need to. And if you haven't thought about, you may want to remove any folding stations you had installed. Those levels of conveniences that were really appreciated in the past, I think are really risky moving forward. For gyms and fitness centers, I think you've really got to think about reducing your maximum capacity to account for 6 feet of social distancing, repositioning equipment if it's feasible. And, one of the things that we contemplated as an organization is this concept of reservation usage for gyms. I'm not really sure how practical it is. And so for most of our assets, we're gonna not go that route, but you may have an asset where you've got a large enough team where you actually can monitor and, utilize this concept of a reservation system. For clubhouses, barbecues, other common areas that you have, bocce courts, volleyball courts, basketball courts, et cetera, I think you've got to reduce the max capacity across the board. I think all of it needs to be, at most 10. And that assumes that the 10 can fit in that area socially distant by 6 feet. And so what I'm highly recommending here is if you've got these rentable areas or common areas, you really start thinking about doing reservation only blocks, primarily so that you can set the expectation for your cleaning team as well, so that you're able to get in there, clean the common area before it occurs and after it occurs, and really ensure a seamless transition to the next reservation. With regards to leasing offices, I think this is a really tricky one. I think leasing offices, you're going to need to rethink a lot about this leasing office. And so the layout of the furniture is going to matter, and the layout of the furniture, how it looked pre-COVID to post-normal COVID, is going to look very differently. I think you should consider adding sneeze guards, removing extra chairs and sofas from the office, quite possibly, actually removing the self-service coffee bar and add a queue outdoors. I'm not sure when it's going to be business as usual in the leasing office, but if I were to equate it to sort of where the stages are based on Governor Newsom, I would equate it to where stage 4 is, which is essentially like concert halls being open. Our leasing offices are pretty active and busy, and we need to find a way to divert that busy and craziness electronically if possible. And so we're continuing to encourage all of our residents to leverage the portals. And I would continue and encourage you all as well if you don't have a portal to put one up. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, could you, do you have that one slide for the checklist by any chance?
Oh, I do.
Would you mind going to that one first? All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to us all this morning. Very interesting still for me to be doing Zoom meetings and working from home, and but I think overall, as far as my family goes, it's actually been kind of nice and brought us closer, and doing more things with family. We were talking before we got on, and I think that mixture of family and work has been blurred a bit by this, and it's kind of nice. So I'm based here in San Diego, and we just got word that they are allowing people back into offices starting on Tuesday, as long as they have a safety plan in place. And so this slide right here is one of the things provided by the state that needs to be in place for all of your tenants, so that they actually have a safety plan in place. And so I don't know if you as managers know about this or have sent this form out.
Paul, can you look at this?
Oh, so we can certainly make it available so that it can be sent out to your tenant base, so they know everything that is required. Now that people are coming back, and even now at some of our buildings, we have a number of tenants that are still working. If you guys wouldn't mind putting your volume on mute. Yeah, right there. Now that folks are coming back, and as I mentioned, we have a number of buildings where people still have been working. And the number one thing that we've noticed is people are really looking for a perception of safety. Like, hey, we're coming back to work. All this has happened. I'd like to see what the building is doing, what management is doing to address this. And what we are really addressing is a couple things. First of all, having a poster in the lobby that kind of reiterates the plans for COVID as far as safety, having PPEs, staying 6 feet apart, not coming to work if you have a fever, those types of things reiterated on the sign, as well as the ones that we've been posting, letting the folks know that the facility is being disinfected throughout the day with a CDC approved disinfectant cleaner. So the first perception when they walk into the building is, hey, they're addressing these issues. They know about it and they care about my safety. The other thing is, from a perspective of cleaning, is how things are cleaned. And also with the folks that are coming in, seeing that the day porters, for example, are cleaning in a different way. And when I say in a different way, I mean that they are literally walking around your facility with a disinfectant cleaner strapped to their hip. And as they're walking through, are touching with this disinfectant cleaner all of the high touch points in the facility. Now, in the past, when you see people clean, it's always been spray and wipe. With a disinfectant cleaner, they require dwell time to work properly. So if you spray a disinfectant, for example, and immediately wipe it off, you're not allowing the dwell time, the kill that the disinfectant was designed for, to do its work. So what you will notice is that people are walking through with the disinfectant cleaner and literally lightly spraying door handles, tabletops, and high touch areas throughout the facility. So one thing your tenants might say is, hey, I noticed that some of these areas are damp. That's going to be a kind of a byproduct of using disinfectants correctly in the facility. So that's something that that we see as very important, and that day porter is very visible. From a perspective of actual tenant space, we know that when the tenants reopen, some of the things they're looking at is staggering their workstations. And for example, in a cube farm, they might say, hey, instead of you coming to work every day, come to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this group will come in Tuesday and Thursday this week, and then next week you swap. So that people are still potentially working from home, but the spacing within the office areas has changed so that there's more room and people on top of each other. From a cleaning perspective, people are going to want more cleaning done and more frequently. We all know the deal with desktops in a commercial setting. People want them cleaned, but they have a pretty full desk of papers and items all over their desks. So really it precludes our ability to clean them. So one of the things that we are communicating to the tenants is, hey, we want to do these things. We want to disinfect your desktops, but they really need to be cleared nightly for us to be able to do so. So some of the things that we've seen in the past with shared workspaces, people completely clear desktops and maybe don't even use the same desk the next time they're in the facility. They don't have their knickknacks on their desk and they bring in what they need daily. I think this is going to be something that's important moving forward, so that literally when we come into an office, we can clean as normal, but also lightly spray high touch surfaces, including workstations, with a disinfectant cleaner. So, so something that's going to be important to communicate to the tenants, as I think the tenants are really going to be looking closer, and we've already experienced really looking closer at cleaning when they come back to work.
And Eric, we have a quick question for you.
Okay.
We have a question: if the disinfectants are still wet on the touch point surfaces and tenants are touching it with their hands, is that harmful to the tenants?
Absolutely not. So the disinfectants that we use, our people, and most of the ones that are available today, our people actually use them to wash their own hands at the start of their shift. So it's not caustic, and it's actually fine to get on your hands and actually clean your hands with them. So yeah, good question, and yeah, something that I see already. People are saying, hey, we're touching things that are a little tacky, and or hey, they're a little streaky. We're continuing to go through and clean areas after the disinfectant has been used, but again, for effective disinfection, you need that dwell time. So yeah, good question. You know, the other thing that you've probably seen from a perception standpoint when you walk in the building is people that have the hand sanitizers and the stands. And for those of you that have looked into them that don't already have them, they are extremely hard to get. We're looking at 8 weeks, and Purell, for example, is saying, yeah, 8 weeks, but the schools and the hospitals have first right of refusal on them. So very hard to get. So if you don't have them, I think it's really important, and we reiterate on our signage, that the most important thing you can do is wash your hands well. And it is more effective to wash your hands well with soap and water than use hand sanitizer. So just another education point to constantly be letting tenants know as, hey, we're looking for hand sanitizer. Yeah, it's really hard to find. We're trying to get some, but in the meantime, wash your hands well for 20 seconds.
And Eric, one more question. Have you heard of nanoseptic to put onto door handles and handrails? Someone heard that they last 90 days and eradicate the corona in less than 30 minutes.
I've not heard of anything that can be put on a surface that continues to work and clean. That would be something that that is brand new, or we haven't heard of at all. No, you can certainly, there's faster dwell times for kills with different viruses, but as far as continuing to kill something after it's been put down, never heard of it. And I would love to see it if it exists, but we have not experienced that at all. We actually have a cohort that's on the CDC panel that we stay in close contact with to try to find out anything new. And man, if that one got by him, we need to look into it. So yes, I'd be interested to find out the name of that product, because simply stated, an inanimate object, you can spray a disinfectant and kill all the bugs on it, but if something is reintroduced, there would have to be something on that inanimate object to continue killing, and I don't know how that would work without it being wet. So my chemistry background would say that I don't understand how it would work, but hey, as I said, let's look into it. Some interesting things as it relates to the future with cleaning and disinfection. One of the things that we're looking at and using in a few facilities is robotic vacuums. And in the past, I don't think people, as far as tenants, liked the idea of having a vacuum going through their space during work hours. But a couple things. First of all, they've become very quiet and are super effective. And then they also do that, what I discussed at the beginning of my presentation, is that perception of safety, that, hey, people really care. They've got a robotic vacuum with a HEPA filtered, hospital grade filter walking through my suite while we're working. They care about indoor air quality. So that's something that I think could be interesting for the future, that I think is going to take hold. The other thing, obviously, we've seen the automated hand soap, automated water in restrooms. I think any restrooms that don't have it, better get on it quick as far as implementing those. And we're seeing the next stage of that as automatic doors for the restrooms that actually open as you approach them, so that literally you go into the restroom without touching anything inside. So some of the things that looking at for the future. The other big thing that that we've started working on is ISSA is offering a STAR certification called GBAC, and it's Global Biorisk Advisory Council. And it is a way for your building to actually get certified as one that is complying with disinfection and is certified as doing such. So as we saw USGBC and green buildings, I think the future is that you will get a biorisk safety rating on your building, and tenants will love to see that. So another thing for the future. I guess lastly, and then we can certainly take questions, is indoor air quality, and we touched on that a bit as it relates to janitorial, using HEPA filtered hospital grade vacuums in your facility, not only standard but also potentially the robotics. But the other thing with indoor air quality as it relates to engineering and making sure that all of your filters are upgraded, that your coil systems and those things are actually disinfected and taken care of that way, and also good ventilation within your facility. So kind of a combination with indoor air quality with the vacuum cleaners as well as the mechanical systems in the facility being reviewed and upgraded and disinfected as the standard cleaning practices take place with the mechanicals. So that's my janitorial overview. And obviously if there's any questions or comments other than that one disinfectant I need to definitely look into.
Eric, I actually have a question for you. When you say about robotic vacuums, I'm just picturing, a legion of Roombas. And I suspect in the commercial world, it's something much larger and, commercial grade than 40 Roombas in an office space.
Right. Yeah, we looked into those early on. And if you go to the airport, they're already using some of the wide area robotic vacuums, but in an office space or in a confined space, we never saw the advantage to it. You think of a Roomba and, it's low profile. Somebody comes around a corner and trips on it, instant lawsuit. So yeah, the robotics that are out now are about 3 feet high. They're fully electronic. They learn and map the interior of a suite and actually have a component that alerts a technician when the work has been done and lets them know when it's done. So picture your day porter, for example, setting up the vacuum, going into a suite, and then getting a prompt on their pager, hey, I'm done, taking that robotic vacuum and taking it to the next space. But since they are 3 feet high, we've also seen people put a flag on top of even the 3 foot high ones. They're right, they're right there. They're not small and obscure like the Roombas are. And the quality of work that they do now is pretty incredible.
But I think the first thing is you said pager, which I think half the people on here are like, what's that? But so is the concept of this robotic vacuum so that the cleaning teams can focus on like wiping down surfaces? Is it or like a reallocation of labor, or does the vacuum also then like mop it afterwards as well?
Yeah, I think it's kind of both, Kelly, that it helps with labor as it relates to nighttime cleaning. vacuuming is definitely one of the biggest time consumers. So less time with the night crew, less time with utilities being used at night for cleaning, in and out of a suite faster. So, potentially using less energy for cleaning when you can use more of the work at night. And then that whole perception of cleaning that, hey, the people in the office named the robot Bill. Hey, here comes Bill. And they know Bill's coming through and affecting indoor air quality and making their safe space or their space safe.
And I know a best practice in commercial for my stint in commercial is really everyone's in their offices during the day and then magically at night, a bunch of elves come and clean the building. Do you see that shifting in this new environment where you might want to be a little bit more forefront with like, look, we've got someone cleaning and sort of that psychological piece of it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be critical, that they not only see, the day staff doing things differently. Also within the suites themselves, we've got a number of them already that said, hey, we're a full floor tenant. We want a designated day porter and have them just coming in and doing extra cleaning for them and hitting those vertical surfaces more frequently. Because literally night service, you're getting it once a day. The common areas 4 to 5 times a day. So for those tenants that have a lot of people working in, they want more touches with the disinfectant. So yeah, I think we are going to become more visible and won't just be as you said, the invisible elves. Will be more integral to the cleaning of the building.
And night crews are really common in commercial and definitely less common in multifamily. Are you starting to see more multifamily clients requesting proposals? Hey, can you come clean the leasing office in our common areas, 3 times a week in terms of like a detailed clean, or you're still not seeing that transition?
I haven't seen the transition on the residential side, Kelly. I think it's going to be inevitable though. Once this comes out and people go to work and say, hey, I'm seeing people in my office doing it all the time. I'd like for it to be done more frequently where I live. So, it's all education and people wanting to be safe wherever they go. So yes, I think it's gonna end up everywhere.
Great, thank you. I had a couple actually questions that came to me as well. I want to make sure I get to them. The first was, how many of your sites have over 80% accounts paid? I would say anywhere outside of LA, most of them are fully paid, hovering around like 6-7% delinquency. LA is special in a lot of ways, just given sort of the direction that the mayor has taken in terms of like payment plan structures and requirements. And for those of you not familiar with LA, there's other quirks with it as well. So if you do a 3-day notice, you've got to hand an entire packet. You essentially need to spend thousands of dollars on toner just to packet properly your tenants, to provide notification. And then you've got to manage through, a 12-month payment plan, or if you're in Glendale, quarterly payment plans for the next 12 months. So it's definitely a challenging market. How are you handling elevators in your buildings? We don't have a lot of elevator served buildings, but what I've seen as a suggestion across not just multifamily, but across most industries is this concept of putting the social distancing stickers on the elevators and really reducing those capacities to 4. In parts of this world, they have that where they've got the 4 stickers and like a little tabletop in the middle of the elevator with disinfectant, so you can go ahead and clean your hands as well. I see that probably in the near term. I don't think that that's something that will probably be sustainable, which could also mean that a lot of people are going to start to take the stairs. So in multifamily, most stairwells are unlocked, which is not an issue. But I think in commercial, where some of these stairwells are really one way, there could be an argument that it would make sense to make all those stairwell entrances ingress and egress as well. And I think that's all I had. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Go ahead, Olivia.
Got it. So we have a note here. Someone had looked into the nanospec, and it has not been proven by the EPA that it kills at the rate it says, which is 99.9%. And it's not been proven to continuously kill the germs. So just a little note on that. All right, we'd love to open it up for questions. If you would like to pop a question in the chat box, you can use the little raise your hand icon and we can call on you. If you have something to share of what you've seen working in your properties or with your companies that you think would be beneficial for our attendees, please feel free as well. Drop your name in the chat box or raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can share with us. We'd love to open it up just to be a collaborative conversation for the next few minutes. Best practices, questions you may have, things that you haven't found the answer to for your own properties, just let us know. Anyone have anything you'd like to add?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa. I'm down in San Diego. And there's a couple of things that we've done to speed up the process of cleaning. One was to buy what we call a mister. And it just has a wand and it sprays much quicker. It was $830. We also bought an electro gun. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it right now, but we use that in our vacant units just as an added security measure. And it also allows us to have a cleaning crew come in and then clean the vacant units quickly. So those are a couple of things that we've done.
Hey, Kelly, would you mind showing those slides of the cleaners? Do you have those up still? Yeah, Lisa, what you were talking about is electrostatic disinfection, and it's something that can be done in any facility. And you referenced using a gun. It actually is a process where it reverses the electrical charge of the chemical so that it sticks to things better. So versus coming through and using a spray bottle with disinfectant, the gun actually clings to all the different surfaces. And it's something that most of the companies, including ourselves, are doing, especially as people are coming back to the workplace and saying, hey, can you come through and do all of the common areas for us with the electrostatic disinfection spray. That this is some of our guys, the photo on the left using the gun and full PPEs going through and spraying everything down. So yeah, most all of us on the cleaning side of things are doing electrostatic spray, and something that you can get a quote for directly. Now that Lisa, you mentioned San Diego, now that we're coming back Tuesday with a lot of the office space, we're getting quite a few people wanting to get this done before the tenants come back into the space so they can let them know it was taken care of. So yeah. Good point.
I like it. It's my understanding, and I don't know if it's true or not, that there's a battery operated one or a power cord one. I ended up buying the power cord because sales pitch, I was told that that one is more effective and it has more power. So therefore it is more effective. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly has, we've created like a process for it. And so I feel like it's speeding up the process for us as far as cleaning and the protocols that we're putting in place. And we have both, so that we can have one person doing vacant units and another person doing the common area to kind of help things go a little smoother. The other thing, of course, and I'm sure everybody's doing this, is adding more sanitation wipes, spreading out the fitness equipment, more hand sanitizer right next to every towel holder in the restrooms. And then, I mean, we've maybe done overkill, but we've covered it all, I think. Is anybody having residents or considering having residents sign a waiver before they return back to the common areas?
I thought about it. I think the challenge is you start to get into some possible like HIPAA compliance challenges where now you've got some potential health record, and how do you store it? How do you retain it? If you sell the property, do you transfer that notation? I think we can make this really complicated, and we can say like, okay, you need to do a verbal, and then I'm gonna need you to sign something. I'm gonna take your temperature. But what do you do with all that data? And I think that becomes more of a challenge. I think we need to encourage our residents to voluntarily not go into these areas, because none of our teams, and I know how most of us staff in our industry is, we don't have enough people to, you know, regulate all of this, right? Even if you thought about this concept of like, let's do reservation only for the gym, and it's like, all right, well, who's going to regulate that? And you can, okay, well, let's leverage technology, right? So let's look at some of these products that are out there. And then you look at the products and you go, well, now I've got to log into another login. So who's going to regulate the logins for that? And then, you know, and you just get to this point where it's like, what did we really accomplish here? And so I think at some point you just got to set the expectation. It's like, all right, look, residents, we've got a gym. There's, you know, and if it's a real gym, not if it's a closet with, you know, one elliptical, all right? If you got a real gym, we need to find a way to segment it out, whether you're using some really creative tape on the ground, segment it out and say, look, if there's someone in that quadrant, you can't be in there. And so if every quadrant's taken, you can't be in here. And just, we've got to get people to just do what's right without having the teams play even more of like this babysitter role that I think our teams are really dealing with right now, with 100% of our residents being home, or 99% of our residents being home. It's already become a really large challenge. And then you add in this layer of complexity of like, well, I wanted to rent the clubhouse and I wanted to use the pool, but now the pool looks packed, and it's just going to be too much. I think we need to find ways to simplify it. And we just need to be really, I think, overt in the communication with the residents to set the expectations with the hope that they're going to, you know, fulfill their piece of it. Because right now, from an eviction standpoint, it's pretty challenging. So even if they don't follow the rules, there's very little recourse, which becomes a bigger issue.
Yeah, I haven't done the waiver, but I've definitely drafted up new rules and added additional signage into the fitness center saying, you know, these are spaced out 6 feet apart, and please wipe down all the equipment before and after each use, like just new additional fitness rules. But the waiver is something that I read. I know that NAA had one. I know that some of the other associations have one as well, but I just wasn't sure how prominent that was going to be.
Yeah. And we've also looked at electrostatic sprayers, and did we buy, you know, 2 for each property, and trying to figure out, are they $800 each? I've seen them upwards of $2,000. I saw one on Amazon for, you know, I think like $200. Like, is the $200 one just as effective as the other one? And the answer is, I don't know. And I think there's a lot of stuff out there, and over time we'll all quickly figure out which ones work and we don't. And my hope is that through IREM and other industry organizations, we share that knowledge so that we're not all buying, you know, something that doesn't do anything, you know, positive. And, you know, the purpose isn't to try to do it in-house. You're not leveraging your vendor partnerships. I think those vendor partnerships are key. There's just too much to do. It's not feasible, but it's what can we control in our day-to-day with our equipment, with our teams, and then let's supplement it with our vendors.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation, Eric, on equipment brands that you want to share?
Yeah, we have a few questions too. So Eric, I don't know if you wanted, maybe we can send out with the recording of this some resources and your contact information as well, Eric, so that we can contact you individually and ask about, you know, different equipment and different things like that. We have a few questions, and then I see, Will, you have your hand up. Did you want to ask a question as well? Can unmute yourself.
Sorry, learning this. I see my little tiny white hand up. I kind of just wanted to, good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing good. Just want to give feedback. I never stopped being in the field. I visited probably more sites than regionals. I do, if you guys don't know, Courtesy Patrol. So essential, we're at the front line of property management. So just feedback. I know I've been on properties that probably opened up their pools before they were supposed to. And surprisingly, people were behaving. They removed chairs, stuff like that. But it was very surprising because I thought it would be a madhouse. I mean, we have other people jumping the fences to get in the amenities. The other thing is other options. I know that there's going to be apps that are already going to be out in order to kind of how to handle amenities. I'm already writing contracts for companies hiring us just as amenity officers, meaning it's going to be like a nightclub. Hey, how are you doing? Kelly Tang, is this your child? Is this your wife? Sorry, your cousin, your uncle, your aunt can't come in. So definitely already working on that with clients. So definitely there's going to be changes depending on what company is and how they open up, whether they use an app, whether they use their third-party software they already have, like something like Active Building, where you're almost submitting an appointment to use the gym or the amenity space, depending on what kind of property it is. The other thing is, like I said, without saying any company names, I've seen leasing offices already open, minus the fact that their doors are open, but they'll have a 6 or 8 foot table blocking. I can tell you that feedback with people driving by, they're not seeing just 100 signs on the window saying face mask, virtual leasing. They're actually seeing an open door, so they're actually stopping. And those properties are doing well with leasing. They can yell, "Hey, how's it going?" and talk to people, but just that environment for your internal staff and exterior staff, I can tell from talking with management staff and people coming by, has been a big help. So all these little things I see in the field, like I said, definitely it's been interesting to see. The other thing is me being sneaky. The way I've been going to all these accounts is I ordered ginormous 1.75 liters of hand sanitizer, logoed it, and we're going through hard times. Everyone needs a drink, all jokes aside. They think it's vodka because it's in a vodka bottle, but it's hand sanitizer. So we've been trying to take care of our clients as well as, as our officers. But yeah, definitely just interesting time. Just kind of want to give feedback what I've seen in the field, and it's been crazy for sure. So that in homeschooling.
So going along with that, for those that you run into that are not willing to wear a mask in public space, what is some good language to use with those people?
A lot of places have their signs at their doors. I mean, 3 or 4 signs that literally say, in order to enter, please wear, please have face mask covering nose and mouth. So a lot of people just literally have it on their mouth. I mean, respiratory, everything is connected. If you had it just on your nose or just on your mouth. So a lot of the signs literally have a kindergarten picture. Please, have your mask like this, and I know that's helped out. It makes you feel awkward walking in there when everyone else has it on. So I think just that sign right where the handle is, or right where the, eye level would be for sure. Just in order to enter, please have face mask covering face, mouth and nose.
I mean, I think the move-in gifts is going to change. Like if you're in a Class A property and you're giving out nice, embroidered towels, you're probably now giving away masks. I mean, I can see that occurring across multifamily in totality until there's really some clarity on will there be a vaccine, and if there's a vaccine, are we in the clear? So.
Great. Another question, as far as vendors visiting the leasing office when they are reopened, what guidelines would you like vendors to abide by? Call first, wear a mask, set an appointment?
I think it's going to vary by site. If it's a large enough site and you've got a big enough team, it's easy to really still continue to help the vendors. It's really rare that vendors just show up. I mean, for the most part, it's typically in response to something else, but obviously, my recommendation, our requirement is PPE first and foremost, and and keep it as brief as possible. So if they're in there, pick up a key so they can turn a unit for whatever the reason might be. They come in, we give it to them, they leave. You kind of need to cut down on the chit chat and just the potential risk there. It's just not worth it. So.
Okay. And then what are some of the costs management is seeing, and how is that affecting budgets?
I think everyone's really focused on this, especially if you've got properties with, high delinquency. It's figuring out, how do we offset the fact that residents aren't paying rent and you're using concessions for all the new move-ins? It's a really fine balance right now. I think most companies are shooting for higher occupancy. because you get to sustain your occupancy, assuming everyone continues to pay their rent. I think for properties where you're already, doing as best as you can, and maybe you just have a really high delinquent property, you really do need to start looking at cost management. A lot of that is really, we've gone back through and we've rebid contracts, we've rebid portfolio contracts, we've cut down on services, reduced staff hours or shifted staff hours to other bigger properties that can bear the burden of the payroll. It's just getting creative across the board. It's really back to basics. It's similar to the exercise I think everyone did after the Great Recession, which is really finding things that, what do you need to do versus what do you want to do? And so we had a property recently where we had a massive tree trimming budget, and we dialed it back. We thought about, well, what's life safety and clearance versus what would look nice. And so we really kind of went back to that level. There's only so much you can cut. There's very little fluff in multifamily budgets. I think in commercial, there's probably a little bit more leeway, but in multifamily, it's you're trying to get it back down to skeleton expenses if possible. The good news in March and April is you didn't really have a lot of turn volume. Not a lot of people left. That'll be a different story in May and June, because if we're seeing new lease volume, that means people are leaving somewhere else, right? They weren't without a home, and all of a sudden they're leasing an apartment, and so it's going to shift to how are we going to handle this turn volume and the spike in expenses.
Great. We have another question. Hydroflogging is CDC approved, it looks like. Is anyone's risk management team requesting electrostatic only? Anyone? Well, maybe it's a question to think on.
Yeah.
And look into. In LA and Orange County, where are we with counties allowing pools to open? I'm thinking like next to never, but don't have any.
LA, you're probably, if Garcetti comes out with an announcement this week and extending the stay-at-home order in LA, you're looking at probably July, August. Luckily in Southern California, it's 11 months of pool weather. You're just not going to get the 95-degree heat. I think Orange County will be sooner. We're probably looking at mid-June, assuming everyone can behave. I think that's the challenge, is anytime we get closer, everyone gets really excited, and then it just causes a bigger challenge. Thinking about just like COVID in general, the epicenter is really in Los Angeles County, and Orange County, San Diego County, and Inland Empire have performed really well. So I suspect the pools in Orange County will be open soon. So you might see a mass migration from LA to Orange County just to use the pools.
All right, those are all the questions I see on my end. If anyone has any last minute questions, it looks like Paseo Hotel in Huntington Beach is open to those who are staying at the hotel. Their pool is open, so interesting. I don't know, some people can get away with it and others are being more cautious.
That is interesting.
It is interesting. Well,
the hotel's open, let alone their pool.
Yeah, they've stayed open for most of the time. They actually have work, like you could go work from one of their hotel rooms for the day. I only know that because I considered it just to get out of the house, be able to stare at the ocean for just one day. All right, well, it's 11:02, so we're going to wrap up, but thank you everyone for joining. We will send out all of this information afterwards, and we are more than welcome to continue the conversation. You can email myself, it'll come from me, director@iramoc.org. So if you have any lingering questions or anything else to add after this, feel free to reach out to me and we can see about getting you an answer. So thank you to Eric, thank you to Kelly for presenting today and answering all of our questions, and to our sponsors as well. And our next upcoming virtual education event is going to be next week on the 27th. It's on the split roll tax, so something very important to this industry and getting to know the real story. So that registration link you'll probably see that coming out later today if you want to hop on that call next week, and we hope to see you over there. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.
See you soon.